to become wealthy by just selling real estate, it's going to take 20, 30 years if you're lucky, if you can do those 20 plus deals per year. Whereas if you're selling for a living, getting big chunks of income from fixing and flipping or saving a lot of money somehow, and then investing in passive assets, it should really be more like a 10-year window. All right, everybody, welcome to Agent Investor, the only brand that helps real estate agents get off that real estate roller coaster. As you guys know, I was a licensed agent. I'm still a licensed agent, licensed since 2005. And unfortunately, learned the hard way that just selling homes wasn't going to get me wealthy. And on today's episode, we're actually going to talk specifically about a comment that I made, which was a post on my personal Facebook page, basically just stating that here's why almost all real estate agents, even successful ones, do not get wealthy just by selling real estate. But before I get into that, I want to remind everybody about our agent partnership program. It is the only program across the United States that will partner with real estate agents and wholesalers, or really anybody who brings us a deal. If you bring us a deal, our team will put up the money, 100% of the money for the flips. We will do the construction, and then we will split the profits 50-50. Our average profit to date is right around $80,000, which means we've been cutting a lot of checks in the range of $40,000. That doesn't mean that we haven't had deals that have made over six figures or some deals that have made a little bit less. But to learn more about our agent partnership program, please register for our next upcoming call. We have these every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. and you can register today by going to www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. I do these calls live each and every week to make sure that anybody that's interested in potentially partnering with us knows exactly what deals qualify, what we're looking for, where we buy, how to send us a deal, all that good stuff. So again, if you're interested in earning big chunks of income just by identifying great flip opportunities, go to www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. All right, so into the topic for today. Again, my post, it was a very simple one. This is why most real estate agents do not become wealthy by just selling real estate. And again, I have to highlight a couple of points because in the comment section of the post that I did, of course, I was anticipating there to be a little bit of an argument, a little bit of a disagreement, or people bringing points to the table for the most part that I anticipated. And one of the points that I want to highlight is the word most. Most real estate agents do not become wealthy by just selling real estate. That does not mean I'm putting it out there, right? To be very clear, there are some agents, a very small percentage of agents who get wealthy through selling real estate. It's a very, very small amount, but it is there. And I want to highlight the comment that most agents do not become wealthy by just selling real estate. Okay. But in the comment section, there were some interesting comments that I want to address, and I'm sticking to my guns. I know this for a fact that almost every real estate agent that you know, even the successful ones, do not become wealthy by just selling real estate. And I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why, and then some of the comments that were made in the comment section. So first and foremost, selling residential real estate is a hard business. It is not an easy business. Running any business on your own is not easy, but specifically selling real estate is very, very tough. You first get your real estate license. Really, nobody knows that you're doing it. Even your best of friends, a lot of them aren't necessarily selling real estate. So it's tough to get started. But even when you get starting, and this is kind of the perspective that I want to bring to the table, because one of the comments in my Facebook post was essentially that this person works for a company where thousands of agents have become wealthy by selling residential real estate, which I know is not even remotely true. I mean, it's not even close to being true. And the reason I know that is I'm a broker owner. So for those of you who have followed me, who maybe know who I am, maybe you don't, that's okay. I own a residential real estate brokerage, Cameron Real Estate. We're licensed in New England, and we've got over 400 agents within our brokerage. The reason why I mentioned that I'm a broker owner, because really, that's not really relevant in and of itself, is that when you own a brokerage, you recruit. You look for agents to join your company. You look for agents to join your team. And one of the things that almost every broker across the United States does is they run reports on which agents are selling the most amount of houses. Why do they do that? Well, the retail real estate world is very, very top heavy. And again, I know most people probably know this, but 9 out of 10 agents who obtain their real estate license never really end up having a long-term career in real estate. So why would a broker owner, why would a brokerage ever want to know who's selling the most amount of houses? Well, it's because they want to focus their time, effort, and energy primarily on agents who are already selling real estate and hopefully selling more than just 1 or 2 houses per year. So again, this is information that some agents definitely will already know, but I feel that many won't. So when you run these reports, you can put really any fields in there that you want. You can ask it to spit out anything that you want. But for the most part, what most broker owners look for is they look for agent volume, and then they look for the number of transactions that they've done. Right. And to me, the volume itself, the dollar amount of a home that you might sell, is probably going to go up or down. Like maybe one of your best friends is doing really well for themselves and they can buy a multi-million-dollar home. And then the next friend that you have, they may buy a more modest home. So for me, I don't necessarily look as much at volume personally as I do the number of transactions. And I know that, a great number of brokers kind of feel the same way. So when we look at it and we put into the screen, we literally say, well, give me a list of all the agents that have sold over 3 houses in the last 12 months. Give me a list of the agents that have sold over 10 houses in the last 12 months. Give me a list of the number of agents and the names and the contact information of the agents that have sold over 20 houses per month and then 30 houses per month. What you find out really quickly, and again, I'm sure some of you already know this, but this is just going to illustrate my point, is that there are in New England over 100,000 licensed real estate agents. So even when you put into the screen, give me the number of agents that have sold over 3 houses per year, which if you're a full-time real estate agent or you're somebody maybe that's not kind of familiar with the industry, you would think, well, out of those 100,000 people, most agents sell 3+ houses per year for sure, because, they'd have to make at least $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 to survive. And what you find right out of the gate is that out of those 100,000, less than 5,000, less than 5% sell more than 2 or 3 or 4 houses per year. And again, some of you who are on this call, might know this, but yes, there are a lot of people that are looking to get started. There are a lot of part-time agents. There are a lot of agents who are out there. They have other means of income and they buy and sell and they transact when they can. So that in and of itself, like you pull a list of 100,000 to start and only a few thousand, right? Under 10,000, under 10%, sell more than 2 or 3 or 4 houses per year. But then, really where it starts to come in is when you start to look at who has sold more than 10 houses in the last 12 months. And again, I'm going to make some financial assumptions here, which people, of course, can argue with, but some simple ones. And I'm going to say roughly that for every house an agent sells, they earn $10,000 in commission. Of course, there are some agents that have a high price point that might say, hey, it's more than 10,000 for me. Yes, there are definitely some agents who will say it's less, but for sake of an argument, we're going to say that the average commission that an agent takes home is $10,000, which I think might even be generous because that's not even factoring in the broker commission that, the broker takes. But let's just say it's $10,000 per agent. So let's say that an agent needs to make 6 figures, to survive, which in my market in New England, you probably have to make somewhere near that, right? Again, we're making some assumptions here. Some people, of course, can say that they can live off of a lot less than Six figures, of course. Some people might say that they need more. But when you look at how many agents sell more than 10 houses per year in New England, the results are rather shocking. Again, we start with 100,000. It is less. It is less than 2,500 agents in New England that sell, more than 10 houses per year. Now, we're talking about agents getting wealthy. We're not talking about agents earning a living, which is what we preach here. We preach the agent investor model. We say sell houses to pay your bills, to make a living. Do fix and flips, either partner with us or do them on your own to make big chunks of income, to then invest in passive assets. That's the agent investor model. But we're talking about what amount of agents, what percent of agents get wealthy just by selling real estate. So we've already said that vast majority of agents don't even sell 2 or 3 or 4 houses per year. Then we've got far less than 10% that sell 10 or more houses per year, which I would say you've probably got to sell 10 houses per year just to pay your bills. And again, for some people, they'll say, I could save a little bit of money if I sold 10 houses. And for some people, they would say, I need to sell more than 10 houses. I need to sell 15 houses. But the numbers drop off a cliff once you start to get to 15, to 20, to 25, to 30. And if you run a report in New England, how many agents actually sell more than 30 houses in a year, the results will kind of blow you away. It's not many people. It is not many agents. And that's just how the numbers kind of bear out. So when the person commented on my Facebook post that there are thousands of agents just in their company who have become financially free just by selling real estate, I know that factually is not true, right? It's 100% factually not true. And the numbers bear that out. And this is coming from, I'm a broker. This is coming from a broker's perspective. Honestly, I wish that there was a much bigger pool of agents that sold a bunch of houses per year, right? Because that would make my life easier. I would make more money. I'd have more agents to pull from, but it's just not reality, right? So it is actually rare. It is not common for an agent to sell 10 plus houses per year, right? That's going to sound probably like a shocking thing in and of itself. It is somewhat rare, right? Less than 10% of all agents sell more than 10 houses per year. And that's just enough to pay your bills. So where do we start talking about building wealth? Like, how could you build wealth through just selling real estate? Like if only selling real estate was the way you could build wealth, then you'd have to be saving money, right? So you'd have to make far more than you spend. So we'd have to be probably looking at, for somebody to save, call it $50,000 plus per year, right? If somebody saves $50,000 per year over the course of 20 years, they've got $1 million, which I'd argue in this world probably isn't wealthy. Like if it takes you 20 years to save $1 million, by the time you get to $1 million cash in the bank, you're in a good spot. You're somewhat comfortable. But, 20 years later, let's say we start selling real estate when we're 30, we're at 50, we have $1 million in the bank. That's good. You're probably ahead of most people. But again, you've got to save that $50,000 plus per year over the course of 20 years. So on average, in order to make that work, in order to even get to the $1 million net worth level by just selling homes, at a minimum, you've got to figure out a way to sell 15 plus houses per year. By the way, every single year, only spend $100,000, right? We're not going to even count taxes, right? We're going to be very generous here. You're going to make $150,000 plus and spend less than $100,000, throw away taxes, throw away broker commissions, which is really challenging. So I would say 15 houses is probably the bare minimum, but realistically speaking, in order to really have a shot of hitting a little bit over $1 million, maybe even to get into the $2 million range, you've really got to sell 20, 25, 30 plus houses each and every year. And you've got to live really modestly. Okay. So again, I live in New England. New England is very expensive. That's probably not going to change anytime soon. You could live in a different market. I know we've got listeners all across the country in different markets that listen to us. But when I look as a broker owner and I say, what are the percentage of agents that sell 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, and then on the other end, don't spend a lot of money? Because that's the other part that people forget about, is that in a lot of cases, I'm throwing myself into this bucket too. You make a little bit more money. You say, you know what? I was comfortable driving my, Toyota Corolla, but now that I make six figures, or I make 150,000, or I make 200,000, throw the number out, I'm going to upgrade a little bit. We call that in the financial world expense creep. Expense creep is a real thing. And it doesn't always happen by the choice I just made, by saying I need a bigger house, a bigger car, a second house, whatever. Sometimes it happens just through inflation. And we've gone through this in pretty tough inflation over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, whatever you want to define it at. And then you have these other things. Now I've got 4 of them. They're called kids. And there's kid inflation, right? Every kid that you have raises your bills. So I can tell you that when I was a single man, living by myself, I could live fairly cheaply. And I could probably sell 15 or 20 or 25 houses a year and save a good chunk of money every single year. And at the end of a 20-year period, maybe that would have worked out for me. But I can also tell you that once you got married and I had a house and, had 1 kid and 2 kids and 3 kids and 4 kids, a lot of what I say when I say, here's why most agents can't get wealthy selling real estate, it's a function of how difficult it is. It's a function of how difficult it is to sell that many houses. And another point that I haven't even made yet is to consistently, year over year over year over year, sell that many houses. That's another thing that, again, brokers see more than the average agent. When I say that, we are very in tune as a broker owner, even the trends for specific agents. And what I can tell you, right, as I'm recording this, June of 2024, what I can tell you is that when I got into the business, right, going back 20 years, because that's exactly when I got into the business, 19 years ago in reality, but almost 20 years ago in 2005, what I can tell you is the top agents when I got into the business are not the same as the ones that are the top agents today. So when we talk about getting wealthy through selling real estate, we're also talking about being insanely consistent, right? So a lot of things have to go right to get wealthy by selling houses. You have to figure out how to sell a lot of houses, number one, which a lot of people don't do. Most agents don't crack selling 10 houses per year. That's just reality. A lot of agents can, they have the potential to, but a lot don't. But not only do you have to crack it, not only do you have to sell 15 or 20 or 25 houses per year, you got to do it consistently for 20 years. And if you're listening to this and you've been in the business for 10 plus years, I want you to really think about how maybe some of the top agents may have moved around since you've been in the business. And again, we're not looking for the outlier situation. We can all think of in our head, and I can think of in my head, I live in Melrose, Massachusetts. I can think of an agent right now that's been dominating our market forever. Seems like forever. And that's the outlier. So when I say most real estate agents don't get wealthy through real estate, I'm not talking about that person, because that person may well have done it. I can't guarantee that they did it because I don't know what they spent. So there's those two components there. They definitely sell enough houses to get wealthy through real estate. They've been the top agent in my town that I live in forever. But having said that, the town I grew up in, Revere, Massachusetts, I can tell you this, the top agent in that town who's still active barely sells any houses per year. And I'm not going to name names because it doesn't really matter. But I remember when I got into the business, their signs, the specific agent signs, were everywhere. Everywhere. Now, when I drive around that town, I never see that sign anymore, right? Because it's tough to be consistent in that business for a long period of time. Not saying it can't be done. But what I see, even in my own brokerage, forget about the fact that I do look and I do study this stuff for recruiting purposes, but I also look even within my own brokerage. So we have what we call cappers in our office. So if you sell, 10, 15 houses a year, you're going to cap, you're going to pay into my company a fixed amount of $20,000 per year, which, by the way, we've got a disappearing cap. Our caps go from 20,000 to 18,000 to 16,000 to 14,000, but I digress. Our cappers, for the most part, they kind of tend to stay the same, but then there's people who fall off all the time. And there have been a number of people who have been very successful agents that work for my company that have sold 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 houses that now have jobs. Why do they have jobs? Well, for some of them, when the market started to slow down and they were selling 30 houses a year and now they're selling 18, well, they were living off of 30 house per year income. Okay. So I've given so many reasons already why it's just very difficult to become wealthy through becoming a real estate agent. It really is extremely challenging. And if you were to go back on my post on Facebook, which, by the way, if you like my content, you feel like I provide value, all the stuff I do is for free, make sure you follow me on my personal page at Tommy Caffarella, TOMMY CAFARELLA. So if you were to go on my Facebook page and you scroll down and you see this post, you'll see there's somebody that said, what about this person? There is absolutely no way they didn't become wealthy through selling real estate. And the person is actually a friend of mine and they're in our market. And I can tell you that person, at least in the last 3 years, was ranked the #1 KW agent. Not going to name names. You probably know who I'm talking about if you live locally. And I agree. Yes, that outlying person got wealthy through selling real estate. But we're not talking about the outlier. Now, I want to flip it around a little bit because, like I said, I can probably name on one hand the people that I know that got wealthy through selling real estate. Okay. And at Agent Investor, we don't want you to stop selling homes. We don't want you to sell less homes. The objective isn't to make less money selling houses. But I'll flip it around. And if you were to look and say, how many people do I know that got wealthy through the ownership of assets by following the agent investor model? And the agent investor model, I talk about it a lot from the agent perspective. But really, flip this into anybody. It doesn't really matter who you are. If you're an agent, sell enough houses to make a living and pay your bills. Fix and flip for big chunks of income and invest those big chunks of income into assets. Okay. But let's just say you're not an agent, because it really doesn't matter whether you're an agent or not. The model kind of is the same. Let's say you're a teacher or you're a doctor, you're an attorney, you're a vet. I mean, who cares? It doesn't matter what your profession is. The model would be the same. The model would be teach, right? Be a teacher to earn enough money to survive and pay your bills. Fix and flip, find deals, either partner with us or do fix and flips on your own. Find enough deals to get big chunks of income. Remember, I talked about in the beginning of the session that the average fix and flip profit that we do is $80,000. That means an agent or whoever refers us the deal is getting $40,000, a $40,000 check that they can then invest in a passive asset. So it doesn't really matter, right? You definitely know more than one or two or three people that worked for a living, that fixed and flipped homes to get big chunks of income to then invest in passive assets. Or maybe they had high paying jobs, right? That had more consistent income than being an agent, right? So if you're a high paid attorney, for the most part, you're usually always going to be a high paid attorney. So in that profession, and this is why what I teach and preach is related to agents, because while selling 20 plus houses a year for 20 years in a row is extremely rare, if you're in a profession that's very high paying and you're getting raises every single year, you're probably always going to be high paid. And then you're going to be able to save more money. And if you're smart with your money and you use that money to invest in passive assets, you will become wealthy that way. So it's just as simple as the fact that the challenge and how difficult it would be, the path to become wealthy through selling real estate is just so rare and so difficult Whereas the agent investor model is going to 5, 10, 15, produce 5, 10, 15, 20 times more millionaires, right? And there are people that have gone through my program. My program is irrelevant, but there have been tons of people that have gone through, not thousands of people, but, more than a couple handfuls of people that have gone through my program, follow this model, become wealthy, right? More than $1 million a year, more like $1 to $10 million of net worth. And they've done it within a 10-year window. That's the other thing. To become wealthy by just selling real estate, it's going to take forever. It's going to take 20, 30 years if you're lucky, if you can do those 20 plus deals per year. Whereas if you're selling for a living, getting big chunks of income from fixing and flipping, or saving a lot of money somehow, and then investing in passive assets, it should really be more like a 10-year window, right? That's why, my Inner Circle program, the coaching program that I have, which you can learn about, you can get into for free, is not a 1-year thing, right? Like when I talk about what we've done, what most people do to become wealthy, it's not a 1 or a 2-year thing. It's a 7 to 12-year process. Some people speed it up. They do really well. They have maybe some luck or some fortune, or maybe they work more, and maybe they can do it in more like 7 years. But I haven't seen it done in 2 years. I haven't seen it done in 3 years. I know I couldn't pull it off in that, shorter period of time. So, with all of that being said, I always say this, like when I, branded agent investor, and I talk about all this stuff, like it is in no way, shape, or form a knock on selling real estate. I'm a real estate agent. I've got a real estate brokerage. I like earning income that way. I like selling, but it's just extremely challenging. And the last thing I want to just talk about quickly is really even the scalability of the agent model compared to the scalability of the investment model. And so a lot of real estate agents, especially when they start to become successful and they're selling 10 plus houses per year, I'm going to define that as successful. Of course, for everybody, success is a little different, but if you're selling 10 plus houses a year, most of the time you kind of get pitched on the fact that you can build a team. And that's a very common thought, that once I get big enough, I'm going to build a team. I'm going to get agents underneath me that are going to be producing, and I'm going to provide them with leads or training or support, and I'm going to sell on my own, or I'm going to hand off all my leads to the agents that are on my team. And this is another thing just from a brokerage perspective that I've seen. And it's after you've seen it so much, you can't unsee it. But if you've never seen it before, the thought of building a team, a really successful team, where you can get more of your time back and sell more houses and all that stuff, it sounds really, really good. But I can tell you, the amount and percentage of people that pull off building a team that allows them to make more money while working less, it's almost non-existent. It's almost non-existent. Again, I do know people that have done it, and I've seen it. But for every successful agent that starts a team to do more deals and more transactions and get more of their time back and build a business, I would say for every 20 to 30 that say that they're going to do it and start doing it, maybe one of them it works out for. So 20 to 30 for one of them that it works out for. And there's a lot of reasons for this. And again, I'm not anti-team at all. But what I am is, I look at models and I see what are the typical results, what is the most common result for this type of stuff. And then you have to make a determination, like, am I going to put my time, effort, and energy into this model, knowing that this model only works 2 or 3 or 4 or 5% of the time? So what very commonly happens, somebody decides they're going to build a team, they're going to build their business that way. In almost every case, this is what happens. Successful agent, they start a team, they form a brand, they get a website, they do all this stuff. And then they take either 1 or 2 types of agents underneath them. Type A agent is the agent who's never going to sell anything. Now, when you start your team, generally speaking, you have rose-colored glasses on. You think that you can make anybody successful. You think that this person is going to sell. But again, getting back to 90% of agents don't sell really anything. Unfortunately, wish it wasn't that way. A lot of team leaders go through these new agents that never sell anything. And then 6 months later, after that person tells them, hey, sorry, I love being a part of your team, but I'm not making any money. I need to go back to my day job. That team leader has lost time, effort, energy, and made no money. But then there's a second type person who joins a team. And that person, they join the team, they take the resources, they start selling houses. Then the team leader is like, geez, this is working out really well. They're all excited. And then boom, that agent's gone too. Why'd that agent leave? If they were successful, why'd they leave? Well, if you're new to a team, you start having a lot of success, and then you're giving away half of your commission or whatever percentage of your commission you're giving up to your team leader, you get to a point for almost all agents where they say, you know what? I'm good. I can do this on my own. So what ends up happening in almost all cases, right? There's exceptions to every rule. We are not focused on the exceptions. We're focused on what most often happens. What most often happens is that from the day that a successful agent forms a team, within 12 to 24 months, they have typically shut that team down. Now, maybe they're still using the same name, but they don't have agents underneath them because they realize that model isn't a model to build wealth. They read in a book, or maybe they saw the outlier person do it, and they said, hey, I can do it too. But the reality is it almost doesn't work out. Now, again, to contrast that, you will have a really hard time finding anybody who owns passive income assets that keeps adding to their passive income portfolio. I'm not talking about people with thousands of units. I'm talking about somebody that buys a few units every year or a few units every other year and keeps on adding. You will be hard pressed to find somebody who after 5 or 10 or 15 years says, you know what? Man, I wasted a bunch of time. I wish I didn't add any of these units, right? It almost never happens because the math and the model work. The math and the model, you are swimming with the tide instead of selling traditional real estate or building a team. You're swimming against the tide. You have to really fight hard. You have to be really strong. You have to have a lot of endurance to get wealthy by just selling real estate or building a team. You have to be the outlier. Whereas you're buying passive income assets, you're flipping homes, you're getting big chunks of income, you're selling real estate to earn a living. You'd be the average Joe and pull that off. And that's what this is all about. It's not about trying to help people become that outlier. It's about getting as many people wealthy as possible. So of course, like if I coach people on how to sell houses, yeah, I'd hit on one every once in a while. Every once in a while, I'd find somebody who I could coach to sell 30, 40, 50 houses a year. I know how to build a team. I've got a team, right? I'm probably the outlier. And I'm sure I could teach people how to build a team, but most of them are not going to pull it off. But I do know that the vast majority of people who embrace the agent investor model, who embrace sell for a living, partner with Tom and his team on flips to get big chunks of income, invest that income into passive assets, the vast majority of those people who buy into that, who take action on that, are going to have success. And that's what it's all about for me. Because don't forget, I win when that happens too, right? Any partner deal that comes to me, I get 50% of that income. So if it was different, if I could make a ton of money by helping agents build a team, a traditional retail team, guys, that's what I'd be talking about right now. I wouldn't be talking about investing. Why would I talk about investing? I mean, I'm here to make a profit. I'm here to build my own net worth. And I would do whatever worked, right? I mean, I like investing, but if team building was the way to go, I'd be talking about team building right now. If selling 40, 50, 60, 100 houses per year were easy and it was the way to go and I could coach people on how to do that, I'd be doing that, right? So there's a reason that I'm talking about what I'm talking about. You guys know that like everything I do is free, right? So all the content I put out is for free. So I only get paid, if somebody partners with me. So that's why I'm talking about what I'm talking about, because I know it works. All right. Well, the another session that we're going to be doing upcoming is funny. I did another Facebook post, and again, I would encourage you all to follow me on my personal page at Tommy Caffarella. I did a post. We actually analyzed all of the fix and flip deals that made over $100,000. And we did this not too long ago. And what we found is that there were a lot of similarities in those deals, right? You can't always predict why something happened. Things happen for different reasons, but we found a lot of similarities in the deals that made over $100,000 per year. And on that next partner call, went into a deep dive into what we found, because what we realized is that there are certain types of properties, certain types of deals, certain locations that are better than others. And this applies nationwide. It's not just a New England thing. I'm going to have some New England specific information, but I'm also going to talk, about stuff that just is a nationwide thing, on how to find more profitable fix and flip deals. So again, for you guys that are interested in learning more about the partnership opportunities and you want to learn about that study that we did, go to www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. Again, that's www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. And of course, if there's anything I can do for any of you guys for any reason, feel free to reach out. But on that partner call, we're going to talk about how to find deals. We're going to talk about what type of deals we buy. We're going to talk about how we ensure that the partners who work with us get paid and how they feel good about working with us. Testimonials. We're going to talk about, just so much stuff related to the partner program. I hope that you guys jump on at www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. And thanks for tuning in today. As always, talk to you soon.